Next two tutorials are about popovers and modal views, and it's going to look like this, the end product. I'm going to show popover two different ways. One, we're using a storyboard and a segue connection between the popover and the main view, and another one where the popover is a standalone item in the storyboard and there's no segue between those two. The other one is show modal view. I'm going to click on it, it shows up, I type something in it. In the modal view, there's a text box, I type something, I have to click on a button to dismiss it. When I do, whatever I type in the text box is transferred back into the main view and displayed right here in a label. So I'm going to talk about the delegates, protocols, modal views, popovers, and all that. I started creating by a new project, and I'm going to use the utility application, and it's going to be project popover modal lesson, universal storyboards, core data, arc, checked, next. Now right off the bat, I'm going to run this application and see what it does. So here's the working example. It has a title, a navigation bar button. I click on it, I get a popover. So a working live example right out of the box to show how the popover works. Of course, I'm gonna modify this, but analyze it, see how it's all set up. So first thing I'm gonna go is analyze the storyboard. Here is the storyboard. And sorry, this is for the iPhone, and I'm interested in the iPad. Now, one first thing about the popover that you need to know is that the popover is for the iPad only. It's not for the iPhone types. The other thing is that the popover will go away when you click on it. When you click anywhere outside a popover, it'll go away. The modal, on the other hand, is not going to go away until you click on a button and specifically there's a command to let it go away. So first of all, I'm going to change that. Instead of info, I'm going to say show popover. So that's step number one I'm going to do. Then I am going to click on, well, actually click on this button so I can see this area right there. So I have to click on the main view controller. So this view is selected. Now when I click on the main view controller, I can look in the utility area, identity inspector, look at the custom class. They'll tell me what's the code behind it. Main view controller, which is this one. So now I'm going to open that one and click on show assistant editor, so I have those side by side. Dismiss that utility area for right now so I can analyze the code for it. So very first thing that it does is it defines a property of type UI pop-up controller, flip side pop-up controller, and that it just creates a variable of the UI popover controller type. And you see on the other side it does not synthesize it. So that's one difference. Then there are some methods in here. Flip side controller did finish. Popover controller did dismiss popover. Toggle popover. The only thing noticeable in here is the declaration of this property. Now let's go back to the iPad. Dismiss that for a second. That for a second. If I go to the right a little bit, that's our popover. And if I click, it's called the flip over controller, and its class is flip side view controller. So next I'm going to look at flip side view controller, assistant editor, dismiss that one, and see what's going on in there. Flip side pop-up controller M and assistant editor. Okay, something is messed up here. I'm gonna close this, open it again. Yes, now see, you gotta watch this. I'm not sure what's going on there, but it did not open the right one, so you gotta make sure flip side controller.m, flip side controller.h, so the right one's open. The other thing is, if it doesn't open up, probably you could I'm not sure what happened actually. So in this class, something very interesting going on. They have showed how to do these pop-up controllers the right way. First of all, you got to define a protocol. In it, you define a signature of a method. Flip side view controller did finish. Now keep your thoughts, hold it in a second. We'll find out what it does. Now in here, I'm going to define a property. Weak atomic ID implements the flip side view controller protocol. Flip side view controller delegate protocol. It's going to be called delegate. Another action called done. Now on the other side in the code, IV action done is a button that says self.delegate, whatever the delegate is, and we don't know what that is, they'll be called by the main view controller. Whoever calls this pop-up view controller is going to set itself as the delegate. So at this point, we don't know what the delegate is, so that's why we need this protocol saying that whoever is going to call this pop-up controller will implement a method called flip side view controller did finish, and it's not in here, it's going to be in the whoever is going to call this. So that's what's going on here. And then I have a delegate, an ID delegate implements that flip side view controller. So whoever is going to set itself as the delegate must implement this method in there. So that's what's going on over here. Done is a method is going to be implemented by the pop-up controller, and it says self, whoever my delegate is, call its method flip side view controller and send it a reference to myself, so we can grab it and do something with it. For probably see what the value of a text box that we'll define is going to be. Now we're going to jump back to main view controller, and this time it did open up the right one. You see that? Now it says a property. I talked about it in just before that. Now here we go. See, I am defining a flip side view controller did finish. I know because I have looked at the flip side view controller that I must have a flip side view controller did finish method, and it's going to take a variable of type flip side view controller, and I'm going to call it as a controller. So that's the method. And the next one is I'm going to see when I click on that button, show modal, what method does it call? I can guess that it would be one of these two. Well, let me show you how to verify that. I'm going to come in here. I am going to find my main view controller. control click on this button, and it says there's a set action is a toggle popover. So that's the method that's going to be called main view controller toggle popover. And it says if self dial flip side controller, if this variable is defined, self flip side controller dismiss pop-up controller dismiss pop-up controller animated yes, else perform segue with identifier show alternate and send it sender method. So I'm going to set a breakpoint over here and there and there and run this and see which method does it call and how does it actually launch the popover. There you go. I saw the screen. I clicked on it. Let me try that again one more time. Okay, I'm going to click show popover button. You see, it does call toggle popover, and I'm going to step into that. Didn't give me any useful information. Step over. Now I'm going to step into. Okay, so self perform segue with identifier show alternate, and it called, you see how there was a perform segue, and actually it called prepare for segue. So that's one thing that comes with storyboard. We issued a command perform segue with identifier show alternate sender, and it fired the method prepare for segue. If segue identifier equals show alternate, which I set right there, so that's where identifier is being used. Segue destination viewer delegate self. Now this is something tricky going on, that segue destination viewer, because of the storyboard we know what it is. It is the one with the finish. Set its delegate to self. So that's where the delegate comes into play. So it's going to self this class main view controller as the delegate for whatever the destination view controller is, which is, we have seen, we were looking at it just a few minutes ago. UI device is if it's iPad, UI popover controller, UI storyboard, popover segue pop-up controller, segue self dart flip side over controller is equal to popover controller, and then popover that delegate is self. I think that's repetitive. What we're doing over here is doing over there again. I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna click done, and it's going to fire flip side view controller did finish. Now I'm gonna run this out to verify my suspicion that that command is redundant. You see, it is. Even though I ran this out, it's already set over there, and this command is just doing the same thing redundantly. So we are just fine there. So that's one way of showing up the popover, a way to do the popover. Now if you want to do another one, we can just copy the same technique. So I'm going to remove this and show you, next I'm going to show you another technique to do the same thing but in a different way, a different technique where I would specifically call and use the identifier in the storyboard to load a specific view and call it up as a popover. I'm going to create another view, and this view is not going to have a segue connection, so there is going to be a different code to load this pop-up. So I'm going to drag it up there. That's pretty big. I want it to be smaller. So in this version of Xcode, it's a little bit different. I gotta see this thing and make sure the view controller is selected. Then go to this is called the attributes inspector. Change it to freeform, and then click on this little arrow down there. Make sure the view is selected. Now click. Now you see, now this will be enabled. Otherwise it would be read only. So this previous step does that, but it's a little bit tricky. You see, view controller has the other option, view has the size option. So now after I change it, you see it became a little bit smaller. And I'm going to just put it right there, freeform, standing there all by itself. The other thing I want to locate is a property called segue ID. So maybe it's the view controller that has that. Let's look for that. Storyboard ID. Very essential piece of information. I'm going to call it popover 2. This is the second popover 2. Yeah, let's just call that for right now. Very important one. Otherwise, we are not going to know. When I go write the code to load it up, that's the name I'm going to use. So very important one. The size. Alright, let's move forward. Now there are a number of things that I need to do from this point on. First of all, I gotta go back in here and put a label up there so I can recognize it. Okay. Yeah, you see I gotta click on it so it becomes bigger. At this very small zoom in, it doesn't allow me to put a label on it. No, that's not big enough either. I am a popover without segue. Okay, so this is the popover without segue. Alright, now the other thing I need to do is I need this button, and I need to create an outlet for this button. As I have done that, no, not that one. For the main view controller, in the main view controller, that's done click drag and outlet called show modal bi. That's the name I used. So I have an outlet for that button, so I need that. Then I'm gonna go back into main controller, and I have it right there. That's the only thing I did. I created a label on the pop-up 2. On the main, I created an outlet for that button. Now I need this code. I have remarked out the other code, and put in this code, it basically goes like this. No, actually there's another thing. I need to create a another property, strong non-atomic of type UI pop-up controller. I'm gonna call it popover 2, a pointer of type UI popover controller called popover 2, which incidentally, is the lowercase of the ID that we typed in a minute ago. Now I'm gonna close that, and look at this code. Again, I'm gonna now initialize that variable UI pop-up controller called pop-up controller, and it's going to be the self pop-up 2, the same one. If that is nil, then I'm going to create an instance of flip side view controller called controller, and it's going to do my self storyboard instantiate view controller with identifier pop-up 2, pop over 2, and that's why it was necessary to put the storyboard ID there. Controllers set delegate self, then take this popover controller UI pop-up controller alloc init with content view controller. Is that's going to be the controller. I set that property that I made that over there. Popover controller, set its size. Self set popover 2 to popover controller. So these are the steps I gotta do. Of course, if you have it, you can just copy and paste the same code and just change the ID as you make your own one. The rest of the code should stay the same. Then I just this command popover controller present popover bar button. So that's why it was necessary to create an outlet for that button. What I'm saying over here is you're not gonna create a little that arrowhead up there coming from that button. So you can just basically copy and paste this code and just change this to whatever outlet you have created to get that little arrowhead, the one that I'm gonna show you right now. So you see, here we go. I am a popover without the segue, and this arrowhead I was talking about, that's why it's necessary to have the buttons telling it, well, you gotta create. That's what my originator is, to create a little button over there. So and if I click anywhere over it, it goes away. So here's your example to load a popover view controller without a segue and one with a segue. This tutorial became too long, so the next one is going to be about the modal view controllers.